Over the next hour on the BBC's World Have Your Say, we'll bring you the latest on the Denver shootings. President Obama's just spoken. He's called on Americans to embrace those who've lost loved ones. And one of the medical centres which has been treating victims is scheduled to give a briefing in about 30 minutes' time. We'll carry that live. And with the help of many people who are sharing what they saw, we'll tell the story of an attack which has claimed at least 12 lives. Well, let's look at some of the latest developments in the story from Denver, where 12 people have died in a shooting in a cinema in a suburb of the city. President Obama in the last few minutes has promised that the federal government will do everything it can to bring those responsible to justice. He has said this is not a day for politics, which is why he cancelled a campaign rally earlier. His opponent, Mitt Romney, has agreed with that. He's cancelled several radio interviews. In a statement, he's condemned the shooting as senseless. And I also see that the New York Police Commissioner Raymond Kelly has just put out a statement saying that police will be deploying officers at a screening of The Dark Knight Rises, that's the new Batman film, across New York City. This is, and I quote, as a precaution against copycats. And we also got some reports from the Associated Press earlier that a premiere of the new Batman film was going to be cancelled in Paris. Now, let's quickly bring in Ben James from the World Have Your Say team, who's been looking online to see the testimony that people are sharing. Ben, what can you tell us?
Well, also, just in the last few minutes, you mentioned President Obama speaking. Many people have been tweeting that line. There's going to be other days for politics, but this is a day of prayer and reflection. Someone tweeting that and saying, President Obama speaking on the shooting, my man. And on that security line that you talk about, the extra guards in New York and police protecting screenings there. Abdullah Sharif tweets from Washington, D.C. High schools nationwide were heavily patrolled post-Columbine. Pretty sure the same approach will be taken with theatres. Tim posts on our Facebook page as well. I've noticed several responders questioning the failure of the security guards. American theatres don't have security personnel as a rule. The local cinema I go to has fights and nonsense all the time, but no security guards. A suburban theatre certainly doesn't.
Ben, thank you very much. And if you're watching and want to tweet, and make sure Ben picks up those comments, if you use the WHYS or the Denver hashtags, then we will read as many of your comments as we can. We appreciate your help in us reporting this story. Let's bring in Nels, who's with us live from Colorado. Nels, I understand you were close to the attack when it happened. Tell us more about this terrible few hours for you.
I was with some friends. We had considered going over to the movie theater, but realized we procrastinated too long, and there wouldn't probably be any tickets left, so we just stayed and hung out at the restaurant nearby. Then we started noticing that there were cars running through the red lights, going away from the building, and then cop cars went by, so we decided to use my cell phone to listen to the local police broadband so we could hear what was going on, and we started to hear it on
Nels, what did you hear when you were tuning into the police radio?
At first we thought it wasn't real. It sounded too much like the movies that people were at. They were talking about bombs, children in the aisles having been shot. Police officer sounded like he was crying, asking to get police there as quick as possible, to get ambulances. It was just chaos. There were so many people talking over each other as all these cops started showing up, asking for more and more help, and all these different theories being thrown around about there being extra shooters and such. It was really heart-wrenching to listen to, and being nearby, but there's nothing you could really do. They kind of cordoned it off very quickly to try and catch if there was another gunman.
For people who haven't visited Denver, and that will include most of the people watching this program, just describe the Aurora part of the city.
Aurora is kind of a suburb to the east, kind of the flatter area, and this is relatively newer, smaller mall, and the building itself is separate from the mall itself, the theater. It's very, very flat, but there's a lot of new buildings, so it's very open. I don't even know how they could really do a way to keep that area from people from getting out of there.
And as you're talking, we're seeing aerial footage of that part of the city, and you're right, it is incredibly open. Nels, if you can, stay with us live there on Skype. Let's bring in Bertha Lynn, who is a news anchor for ABC in Denver. And Bertha, when we spoke a couple of hours ago, we were watching a police operation around an apartment block which we believed had the home of the man who's in custody within it. Do you have any more information about that operation?
Ross, it is just an unbelievable morning here in our metro area. The latest information we have is that after telling many people that the initial survey of that apartment of the suspects showed no explosives, now we are hearing from authorities, our 7 News investigative team has confirmed that the suspect's apartment is booby-trapped with explosives and flammables. And police are saying that they're going to be there hours, if not days, and they actually have evacuated 5 buildings near his apartment.
And do we know what's inside the apartment, aside from any booby traps? Because I did see some claims on Twitter there was a stockpile of weapons or bullets.
No, I don't have confirmed information for you in that regard. The police are going to be giving us an update. Hold on, let me just verify for you when that police update is going to be. 11 o'clock our time, so that's it's 9:08 right now. So in a couple of hours, we should get updated information for you.
So that is 17 GMT, just under 2 hours' time. Bertha, thank you very much indeed for the moment. Let me bring in Andy Cohn now. He is outside of the cinema where this attack took place. He's a reporter for KOAA TV, which broadcasts in Denver. Thank you for your time. Can you describe to us a bit more where you are in relation to where the attack took place?
Of course, we're just to the north of where that theater is located. It's a theater that's part of a shopping mall complex. It's not actually attached to the mall itself. It's a separate building, but essentially they're all here on the same campus. Throughout the early morning hours, all of the surrounding roads leading into this shopping complex have been closed off by the authorities. They're still treating this area as an active crime scene, and a lot of new developments are taking place by the hour. We're hearing reports of what's taking place at the suspect's home, that there may be some explosives there. The police are using a lot of caution in that area. We're expecting an updated briefing here at the shopping mall at about 11 o'clock Mountain Time, so it's about 2 hours from now.
And you say it's still being treated as an active crime scene. Is that standard police procedure? Is that because they believe there still may be a threat within the cinema complex?
You know, I'm not sure if they're treating it that way because of the threat. I do know that they are keeping, obviously, a lot of the public and all of the traffic away from this area. The media are kind of secluded off to this section of the parking lot. Don't really even know if the coroner has arrived yet to begin removing some of the bodies from inside of the theater. We understand that at least 10 of the dead were, in fact, still in the theater itself.
Andy, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Andy, a reporter with local TV in Denver. Nels, I wonder if I could bring you back in. You're still with us. It's worth reminding everyone watching that this attack has taken place just 30 kilometers or so from the Columbine High School, where a devastating attack took place in 1999. I'm assuming those of you who live in this area can't believe that such an event has occurred twice in such a small area.
Yeah, I know that a lot of the people who were with me when we were listening to the sounds from the police scanner were thinking about Columbine, because it was from here. A lot of people, I was in high school when that happened, not here, but you all thought about how much it changed things here, and it just makes you wonder what this will change too. just crazy to think of it in this small, beautiful place, things like this happening. I don't know what would encourage it here. Just very interested to see what the thoughts behind this person were, why they would do this here.
Well, that we may have to wait to find out.
Yeah.
I was mentioning just a little while ago that President Obama was speaking earlier. In a moment, I'll play you some of what he had to say. But if you do want to phone up, whether you're in Denver or in America, and want to give us your view on what's happened and whether this is another moment for America to consider its gun laws, or whether, and I've seen this online a lot, this is something only being pushed by people outside of America, and that Americans make no connection between their gun laws and this kind of event. Either way, the number to call is country code 44 20 31 624242. As promised, this is a little of what President Obama had to say in Fort Myers. Oh, I'm afraid, sorry, I thought we could bring that to you right now. In the meantime, let's bring in Ben James, who's still with the World Have Your Say team, who can tell us more about what he's been finding online.
Barry, actually, you mentioned the phones, and Barry in New York has just called in to say that's what happens when you allow easy access to firearms and accident waiting to happen. So that's a caller from the United States, and do call in if you disagree with or agree with Barry on that number. It's on your screen through the programme. Also, people are, you're right, making links between this and what happened in Columbine in 1999. TheAtlantic.com has an article entitled Echoes of Columbine. That's their headline. Lots of you are sharing that online. Mike in DC says Aurora shooting happened only 15 miles from Columbine. What haven't we learned about getting guns out of the hands of madmen? And Brandon tweets that Colorado has the worst luck ever between Columbine, the wildfires, and now this movie theatre massacre. Midwest Sweetheart tweets, my heart breaks for that community in Colorado, Columbine, and this violence isn't the answer.
All right, Ben, thank you very much. We'll speak to you again in a few minutes. The hashtag is WHYS. You can get us on Facebook as well. We'll be back in a couple of moments' time. I can see calls coming in from Saudi Arabia, New York, Nigeria and Ethiopia. Perhaps we could go back to Andy Cohn, who's a local TV reporter in Denver. And Andy, unsurprisingly, a lot of our viewers around the world are making a connection between the gun laws in your state and this kind of attack. I wonder if that issue is playing out locally as well.
Not hearing so much of it here at the scene. I think a lot of just the emotion of what's happened. Many of the folks who are in the theater that we've spoken with are still in a lot of shock over what's taken place. I've also, just in the last hour or so, been over to a local high school here in the Denver area where they had evacuated a lot of the theater patrons to try and get them out of harm's way, if nothing else. And it's become a gathering point for the families who may have lost loved ones. A lot of very raw emotions there, and not hearing so many people talking about that argument just yet. I'm sure that it is something that's going to come up. Obviously, you know, there is the history here with the Columbine shooting as well. But I think at this point, right here in the epicenter of everything, emotions are still a little too raw to begin that debate.
Thank you very much indeed, Andy. And it's also interesting that we've seen quite a few Americans come to World Have Your Say and say, look, everyone outside of our country is making this connection. We are not. We don't see a connection between our gun laws and these kind of events. And there is some resentment that people outside of America make the connection. You're very welcome to comment on that issue, facebook.com/World Have Your Say. I was promising you a little bit of what President Obama told a group of people in Florida who'd come together to talk and listen to politics. He didn't give them that. He talked to them about Denver.
This morning, we woke up to news of a tragedy that reminds us of all the ways that we are united as one American family. By now, many of you know, many of you have heard that a few miles outside of Denver, in a town called Aurora, at least 12 people were killed when a gunman opened fire in a movie theater. And dozens more are being treated for injuries at a local hospital. Some of the victims are being treated at a children's hospital. We're still gathering all the facts about what happened in Aurora, but what we do know is that the police have one suspect in custody, and the federal government stands ready to do whatever is necessary to bring whoever's responsible for this heinous crime to justice. And we will take every step possible to ensure the safety of all of our people. We're going to stand by our neighbors in Colorado during this extraordinarily difficult time. And I had a chance to speak with the mayor of Aurora as well as the governor of Colorado to express, not just on behalf of Michelle and myself, but the entire American family, how heartbroken we are. Now, even as we learn how this happened and who's responsible, we may never understand what leads anybody to terrorize their fellow human beings like this. You know, such violence, such evil is senseless. It's beyond reason. But while we will never know fully what causes somebody to take the life of another, we do know what makes life worth living. The people we lost in Aurora loved, and they were loved. They were mothers and fathers. They were husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, sons and daughters, friends and neighbors. They had hopes for the future, and they had dreams that were not yet fulfilled. And if there's anything to take away from this tragedy, it's the reminder that life is very fragile. Our time here is limited, and it is precious. And what matters at the end of the day is not the small things. It's not the trivial things, which so often consume us and our daily lives. Ultimately, it's how we choose to treat one another and how we love one another. It's what we do on a daily basis to give our lives meaning and to give our lives purpose. That's what matters. You know, at the end of the day, what we'll remember will be those we loved and what we did for others. That's why we're here. I'm sure that many of you who are parents here had the same reaction that I did when I heard this news. My daughters go to the movies. What if Malia and Sasha had been at the theater, as so many of our kids do every day? Michelle and I will be fortunate enough to hug our girls a little tighter tonight, and I'm sure you will do the same with your children. But for those parents who may not be so lucky, we have to embrace them and let them know we will be there for them as a nation.
There's President Obama. I can see that ABC News is reporting that the suspect, James Holmes, moved to Colorado from San Diego to study a PhD at the University of Colorado, but that he withdrew as a student in June. And I do believe a woman saying she's his mother has been speaking from San Diego too. Now, a couple of hours ago, we managed to get through to a gentleman called Shale on the phone. He'd been on the front row of the particular cinema screen, which was attacked by the gunman, and he told me about what unfolded.
I'm good. I'm just traumatized from the event. It was just a devastating event. I ain't never seen nothing like that in life. It was just real.
I can only imagine, Shale. Tell us what happened.
Well, I was sitting on the left side in the front row. It was like the second to the first row, and we was watching the movie, and it was right after the villain had just came on the screen, and all you know is that a man comes in the right side of the theater with a tear gas bomb. He throws it, but I'm just thinking it's like part of the movie, like the theater had set something up. But no, it was real. He threw the tear gas bomb over it. I seen the smoke, and it blew up like boom. And then as I look back over, he's pulling out a rifle, and he starts shooting. I see him shoot 3 shots. He starts killing people. I dug down because I think he's going to shoot me. And I just ran out, and as I ran out, I still hear shots going. And I was there with my family, so I made sure my family got with me. We just ran out into the parking lot.
Shale, were you able to see the man who was attacking you all?
Yes, I was. He was a man wearing like an army suit with a gas mask on. He looked like someone like off of, I don't know, like off of a movie or something, like a SWAT team or something. He was wearing the gas mask and all black clothing.
And I'm guessing the theatre was very dark at this point because you were in the middle of watching the film. Did anyone manage to turn the lights on to see what was happening?
No, I was out of the theater by then. But I just heard gunshots going as I was running out.
And Shale, when you got outside, what did you see?
I got outside, it was just devastation. I seen a police officer carrying a little girl, bloody, bullet wound. And I seen bodies just getting carried out. I even seen an injured person with a bullet wound in his neck. He was bleeding out. And I just seen the officer trying to get the ambulance to save his life.
That was a gentleman who unfortunately was caught up in the attack. Fortunately, he was able to get out unharmed. Well, let's bring in Lawrence, who lives in Colorado. I actually exchange emails with you a great deal, Lawrence, about lots of the stories we discuss on World Have Your Say. We don't often speak. It's a shame we're speaking in such unfortunate circumstances. Tell us your perspective on what's happened.
Well, thanks. I'm one of the many people in Colorado who have a concealed gun permit, and we are people who've been checked out by the FBI. And basically, we have these concealed weapons solely for this kind of event to protect ourselves, our families, and we are trained to never shoot in a crowd or in a theater, of course. But in this one instance, I wish that there had been one of the concealed weapon permit holders had been at the theater. Perhaps that could have averted some bloodshed.
Well, we can talk about that further after the break that's coming up, Lawrence. There are some reports he was wearing a bulletproof vest, but I do wonder, those of you watching, do you think if everyone had been armed in that cinema, might this never have been so serious? You're very welcome to speak to Lawrence. He's live on the programme. You can call us on Skype, BBC_WHYS, or email us, worldhaveyoursay@bbc.com. I'm just looking at some of the countries which are calling in: Iraq, Sudan, Cameroon, India, Algeria and Canada, to name but 6. We'll get to more of you in a few minutes' time. Well, I'm looking through some of the countries we're receiving calls from, and it's a very long list: Singapore, Guinea, Qatar, Ghana, Kuwait, Switzerland, Zambia, Mozambique, Tanzania, Libya and Bangladesh. Let's bring in Ben from the World Have Your Say team. Ben, I'm curious. I'm sure many people are just offering their commiserations to those who've lost loved ones in Denver. But beyond that, what issues are people raising?
Well, Stuart's one of the people who called us from Singapore. He says, typical BBC making this story into a moral judgment about gun control. Well, thanks for your comments, Stuart, reflecting points of people calling in just like yours, and lots of people are undoubtedly wanting to talk about gun control. For example, there's Edward, who's in Sudan. He says, he called in to say, this is what happens when you have stupid gun laws. Jay Skyped us from Liberia. With so many guns around America, should expect this. But Daniel in Texas called. He says it's too difficult to change the gun laws. We just have to live with it.
Ben, thank you very much. We'll come back to you in a few minutes' time. I was mentioning about 10 minutes ago, I thought that the mother of the man in custody was from San Diego. That's now been confirmed. A spokesperson for the police department there confirms the family of James Holmes, who's the suspect in custody. Well, the family does live in the city. They've asked for the media to respect the privacy of the family. And this is an email from Richard in Denver, who says, fortunately, I wasn't involved in the actual shooting, but I can't express the grief, sadness and somberness surrounding the Denver area today. Roads are empty, many offices seem closed. It feels like everyone is feeling the sting of last night's events. What an unimaginable tragedy. Well, Peter Burns is someone who has been talking about this shooting on Twitter. And Peter, we invited you on because incredibly sadly, you've lost one of your closest friends. Do tell us about her.
Yeah, I mean, Jessica was just an amazing, vibrant young woman. You know, she moved here to Denver only a year ago, kind of my bequest. I moved here a couple of years ago to continue sports talk radio here in town, and she was you know, a former intern of mine, and she said, hey, I want to take a risk. I want to be where the action is, and so, you know, she convinced her family and took extra jobs and moved here about a year ago, and did everything she could to be in the sports community here, worked with every single sports team, every media company, took every internship she could, and was really working her way to become, you know, to make a name for herself. And just an amazing situation that boils down in just an incredible senseless crime of somebody who was so young and so full of passion happened last night.
Well, we're terribly sorry for her loss. It sounds from some of the messages we're getting from Denver that many people just feel numb that this could have happened, and it could have happened again after what happened in Columbine.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people that were here. I was not here in Denver or in Colorado after Columbine, but, you know, I can remember reading, you know, about it. And I think the thing that struck me so amazing is that here we are years afterwards, and we know, unfortunately, more about and celebrate the lives more of the cowards that did this as opposed to the victims themselves. And we live in kind of a macabre society to where we want to know about, you know, these guys. And it's sickening when we should be really, you know, focused on the great lives of these victims. I mean, Jessica, you know, like others, had an amazing future ahead of her, and we had really bad wildfire, really bad tragedy weather-wise here in Colorado, and she had just met with us to set up a nonprofit that she didn't want any credit for, raise hockey equipment for people that were affected by the tragedy. So, I mean, there's stories of all the victims that have that, and I hope that rings more so than the names of the people, the name of the person who did this.
And Peter, we have heard some hostility from Americans who feel that people outside of your country are trying to raise issues about gun control which are in no way relevant to what's happened in Denver. How do you feel about that?
You know, it's difficult because they'll use this, or they'll use any kind of story, and I even seen it. It's not necessarily across the seas. You know, it's here in the United States.
It sounds like we've lost Peter's line, but best wishes to him and to Jessica's family as well. Let me just see a message here from Kjeli in Norway posting on Facebook. He says, "We feel for the American people, but I need to say, control video games and guns. Norway has very strict gun laws. It did not help, but Breivik trained on video games before he killed our children." Well, Lawrence, who's a long-time World Have You Say contributor who lives just outside of Denver, just before the news, you were saying you felt that on the contrary, it would have been better if more people had had guns on them rather than less people in this situation. So what do you say to our many viewers outside of America who are saying the gun laws are to blame?
Yeah, of course they're right. If there were no guns here, that would be wonderful, and then I would not have a concealed carry permit. But sadly, there are millions of guns in America, and many of them are in the wrong hands. And of course, if the authorities said, please turn in your guns, well, the bad guys are not going to turn in their guns. So we're already beyond that stage of taking all the guns away. And therefore, what we find is that in the states that have concealed carry permits, we have less random crime like this because the bad guy never knows if the old guy like me might be armed.
Lawrence, thank you very much indeed. Just for the moment, do stay with us if you can. More calls coming in from the Netherlands, Liberia, Venezuela, Italy and Gambia. I promise I'll get as many of your comments on the air as I can. Let's bring in another person to speak with Lawrence. Ben Miller is a psychologist at the University of Colorado. Ben, thank you for joining us. What point would you like to make to our viewers about this tragedy which has been visited upon your city?
Well, first of all, I think reflecting upon what other viewers have said today, this is a tragedy and something that no one wants to see in any community. I think representing the healthcare community, there are a few things that we want to be mindful of at this time. First of all, we need to recognize that those families that are affected immediately by this, that there's a lot to deal with, and that those families that are affected need to reach out, whether it be to their community or their healthcare providers, to seek help, seek assistance. Some of the worst things that can be done in situations like this are just to avoid talking to anybody about what you experienced or what you felt. And so I think that would be point number one. We don't want to avoid this. We want to have these conversations in our community. The second point is we also don't want to avoid going to movies. We don't want to avoid getting out in our communities and doing the things that we normally have been doing. A case in point, about 3 weeks ago, we had another tragedy like this in Denver where a police officer was shot and killed at a jazz festival downtown. And the very next week when that same jazz festival was happening, we had the mayor and his family out there showing that this is a safe city. These are rare occurrences that happen. While tragic, these are rare, and we need to continue on with our daily lives.
But Ben, it sounds like to some extent that's not happening in Denver at the moment. You're there, I'm not, but we're getting messages from people saying the city is noticeably quieter than it normally would be.
Oh, absolutely. Well, anytime a tragedy like this strikes in your backyard, you're shocked. And I think that's a common response. I think if we weren't shocked, it would be uncommon. So absolutely, this is so brand new that we are still all trying to process this in our own way. And I think that's quite a normal response as well. Some people manage this very differently than other people. But I think our community collectively has had this huge, just deep sigh of regret that how could this happen? Why has this happened? So yes, we are all processing it.
Ben, thank you very much for your time. Ben's from the University of Colorado. Lawrence, if I could bring you back in, because your comments have prompted a number of responses. A codebreaker has tweeted us using the WHYS hashtag, saying the gunman had a bulletproof vest on. Someone else shooting would probably kill a bystander rather than him anyway. This was in response to Lawrence saying it might have been better if some people had had a concealed carry license and had been in that cinema. And T, who's watching us in D.C., Washington, D.C., that is, tweets, again in response to Lawrence, it wouldn't have mattered. It was dark, it was tear gas filled, there was a commotion. If you shot, you would probably shoot the wrong person. Lawrence, what would you say to those people if they're still watching?
Well, I agree that someone who is not trained to use firearms in crowded situations might easily shoot the wrong person or not be able to see. So some of us, like myself, have been trained in tactical firearms with the police, and so therefore I would hope that we could execute our duty and do it correctly, but I certainly see his point.
Thank you very much indeed. Lots of people are responding to the points you've been making. If you'd like to read those on Twitter, not just Lawrence, but all of you, WHYS is the hashtag. Let's quickly switch back to Ben from the World Have Your Say team, because we are getting an awful lot of calls, the latest coming in from Tanzania and Senegal. What else can you share with us, Ben?
Well, Bill's called in. He's from Denver, but in the Netherlands at the moment, and he says, I go to that cinema almost every weekend and know several people who were there when the shooter opened fire. It's only because I'm on holiday here that I escaped this. VJ's just called in from India too and says, very regrettable. All such incidents, though, are rooted in gun culture in the US, he says. And Sabri in Saudi Arabia has got a similar point. This is almost a routine incident in the US. The gun laws should be tightened. If this was to happen, this kind of incident would be less likely to occur, he thinks. And Desmond in Hong Kong has been watching those pictures too of what looks like a cherry picker trying to examine what apparently is the suspect's flat. And he's saying, why don't the police escort the killer into his flat to find the explosives? Well, I don't know the answer to that, but thank you very much indeed, Desmond, for getting in touch.
Ben, thank you very much. A few minutes ago, I was mentioning that one of the medical facilities treating the victims of this attack will be giving a press conference shortly. We think we'll be able to bring that to you in the next few minutes. The Colorado Governor, John Hickenlooper, has said in a statement that the attack in Aurora is not only an act of extreme violence, it's also an act of depravity. The Associated Press confirming with a university spokesperson that James Holmes, the man in custody, was a student at the University of Colorado Denver School of Medicine. Now, I was mentioning that press conference. Let's hear a little bit of it.
Equipment that was used by this individual, certainly there was some obviously exposure to shrapnel, things flying in the air. We did see patients with injuries such as that. You know, I don't have a specific update with them, but certainly their injuries and wounds are of the life-threatening and critical nature, and they're certainly getting top-notch care at this point. Sorry? There are 5 total, yes. And again, each of them are in critical condition. I don't have a specific update more than that at this point.
And this one person that you said might need to go into surgery, have they already had previous surgery, or this is
No, this would be their initial surgery at this point. I'm unaware that anybody has had to go back, but certainly that is a possibility.
Doctor, I understand the significance of critical condition, but what is your confidence as far as their ability to recover?
At this point, I'm very optimistic. Again, I don't have the extent of all of their injuries, but certainly they're alive, and our staff is continuing to care for them at this point. So again, we don't anticipate anything beyond that. We hope that they will recover, but again, the injuries are significant to these individuals. Anything else that you have? Thank you.
Because of the fact that we don't believe any other patients are going to be coming in, we're not going to do any additional interviews. We're not going to do any additional press briefings. We are available for interviews, and we'll be sending out email status updates so we can provide additional information that way. But that's where we are. And again, we want to remind you that if people are looking for a patient status, friend or family, the number to call is 303-873-5292. That's where they can call to get their patient updates from that number. And if you don't have any other questions, we're good. Anything else I can? Okay. Yes.
Can I get the numbers again?
And we heard from the same two members of staff a couple of hours ago. No major new developments from that medical facility. It had initially taken in 15 of the victims of the cinema shooting. 4 of them were in critical condition. The two members of staff speaking there had no updates on their well-being. I suspect we'll be hearing more from the staff at that medical facility as the day goes along. George is in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Well, he's from DRC, but he's actually called us from Venezuela, saying, you've got to accept this is a cultural problem for America. It's citizens with guns. Guns are there to kill people. That's what they're for. Take the guns away. And I know that lots of you in America are frustrated this issue keeps coming up, but if we look at the calls and the messages that are coming into the BBC, so many people are raising the issue. Founding Ideals has tweeted us saying, why are people blaming firearms? Would it make them feel better if a bomb was responsible for the dead and maimed? Blame the shooter, not the gun. More calls coming in from Pakistan, Sri Lanka and South Africa. Ben from the University of Colorado, I wonder if you could come back in here. Do you share the frustration that some Americans are communicating to us that people outside of your country are blaming gun laws and perhaps failing to understand them?
Well, I definitely understand the frustration that some people may have about the gun laws here. However, I think we would be mistaken if we only looked at one issue here as the root cause. It may be one particular issue, but it's never one thing that leads to a scenario like this. And so at this point in time, I think the focus really needs to be on the community. And what is it the community needs to really get through this? While politics will come into play, gun laws will be discussed, no doubt. Right now, we need to focus on our community and being able to be there for them and provide for them.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm wondering if Nels is still with us. He was at the beginning of the programme. And Nels, for people who have just joined us, you were very close to the cinema complex, though fortunately you weren't there. Just describe to us how you and your friends and family might approach the next day or two. Is it business as usual, or will the city come to a halt to some extent, do you think?
I think we're probably all going to get together. I know we've been all checking in on each other to see how everybody's doing a lot. And I'm sure we're probably all going to get together and have a barbecue or something to just talk and speak glad that everybody's okay. I would like to make one comment about the gun control thing. I personally think that I don't know exactly what gun he had, but there needs to be some control for this. I grew up in gun culture and been around people for years who had lots of access to weapons that are very high powered and semi-automatic or fully automatic, even when they shouldn't. And something needs to be done that shouldn't be in people's hands. Something like this that's just made for murdering people. Probably it's unpopular to say it, but you know what? I'm tired of it.
Lawrence, do you think it's unpopular to say what Nels has just said? That's a shame. I don't know if Lawrence can hear us. Lawrence.
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry. No, I agree, but I still feel that we've already gone beyond the point of trying to get all the guns off the street.
And Ben, do you agree with that? The cat's out of the bag, if you like. The guns are owned by Americans. You can't change America's approach to this issue.
I always believe that there are opportunities to change anything, especially in the face of tragedy. It opens up another opportunity to have a dialogue within this country around these major issues.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Let's bring Ben James in one more time. Ben, I know you're going to be talking about this in just over an hour on BBC World Service Radio during World Have Your Say's radio edition. I wonder if any of the issues raised during the calls you've been taking might be fed into what you talk about later.
Certainly we'll be carrying on these conversations, keeping you updated with the latest news lines from Aurora, speaking to people who we've not managed to speak to yet, who were close to what happened there overnight, and also speak to people who are connected and people living in the area who can share with us what's happening there and what the feeling is there. And certainly so many more people getting in touch still to talk about these issues of gun control. Sean in Singapore's called to say thank goodness the government here doesn't allow us guns. And Faisal's just called from Pakistan, a very sad incident. And he raises this issue of terminology as well, which I've noticed on Twitter as well in the last couple of hours. Faisal says if this person was with a Muslim name, the gunman would be called a terrorist, but non-Muslim attackers are not called that by name. He's not being called a Christian terrorist. Well, we'll certainly see if that conversation pans out as well.
I had a feeling that might come up. Ben, thank you very much indeed. You can hear Ben live on World Have Your Say, BBC World Service Radio. bbcworldservice.com is where you can tune in live. Let me show you some pictures we've just got from Paris, where the premiere of the new Batman film is being cancelled. You can see some of the affairs which were put up being taken down. That premiere is being cancelled. We also heard from a senior New York policeman saying that all the showings of the new Batman film are going ahead in that city, but policemen will be attending, or at least standing outside, to keep those people safe. There's a fear of copycat attacks, although there's no evidence that that is going to happen so far. Thank you very much indeed to Ben, to Lawrence, to Nels, who spoke to us live from Denver. All of you who phoned up, I apologise if we didn't get your comments on the air. We appreciate you getting involved as well. If you post on Facebook or on Twitter, all of your comments get fed into the conversation. I'll speak to you soon. Ben will be with you on the radio in an hour's time. Bye-bye.